Bowling with the Theft.
I encourage you to get fast.
What? All things the game of bowling.
Helping bowlers.
The hand collapses down.
And I'm going to try to bowl the best I can.
1,000 subscribers.
And I want to challenge Chad Nelson.
Tom Corbett.
Jason Belmonte.
Hey everyone, good Tuesday evening. Welcome to another episode of Bowling with the Feth, the platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel. An exciting night here in Feth land, I guess you could say. My alma mater, UW Milwaukee, is currently playing in the conference championship. So if you see me looking, this way, you'll understand why. I'm just trying to get a little peek at the game. It's in the second half, that's exciting stuff for me. Also exciting to find out that a team at the Open Championships with a couple of Bowling with the Fef guests on it has taken the lead in team all events and regular team. 99-15 and 32-06 respectively. Those two former guests are Will Welch and Chad Kloss of the Bowlers headquarters team. They had 2006 and 2002 respectively, and that team led by James Tucker III, 2097 all events for him. So a great run for those guys. Surely doing some scoreboard watching and make sure that thing holds up, and best of luck to them as the weeks go by and more people bowl at South Point in Las Vegas for the Open Championships. Well, I also want to give a big thank you tonight to Ben Marston. If you follow the Facebook page, you know that Ben and his father Nigel had me on their show on the Spare Time podcast on YouTube here on a channel that Ben calls 10-Pin Ben. The episode just dropped last night on YouTube, so I got to watch it after several weeks of waiting. We recorded that thing on February 4th. We talked all about my content creation journey in it and the purpose of Bowling with the Fef, and we recorded it during the U.S. Open telecast on February 4th. Here's a little snippet. I think there is definitely a demand for PBA players. There's a demand for PBA competition and PWBA competition and the highest levels of sport. And don't get me wrong, if EJ Tackett finishes his run on the U.S. Open and sends me an email message saying he wants to be on the show, I will get him on the show. But, I also give that opportunity to folks who are not EJ Tackett, who maybe don't get the phone calls from other live streams or podcasts saying, come on, tell us your story. And you can see the rest of that interview on Ben's channel. Again, it's 10-Pin Ben on YouTube. He calls that episode Exposing the Secrets of the Bowling Media. So after you're done watching this show, I hope you'll tune in and give him a like and a subscribe too. He's got a great channel with some great guests, also including some PBA pros in there. So lots of great stuff from Ben and his father, Nigel. Well, despite the fact that I kind of flubbed it up last week, PBA All-Star Weekend actually happening this weekend, starting Friday night. You got a skills showdown, 5 p.m. Wisconsin time on Friday, PBA Legacy Cup on Saturday at noon Wisconsin time, both on FS1. Then you've got the PBA NASCAR Invitational Sunday at noon on Big Fox. So some specialty events to get us about halfway through the PBA season with a new concept, the All-Star Weekend. Looking forward to see what's going on with that. Flush in the Pocket podcast, my friend Derek Michaud. Good to see you watching live. If you're watching live like Derek, feel free to use the live chat, ask questions, make comments. And if you're watching replay, leave a comment. I do see them all, and I try to get back to as many of them as quickly as I can. Bowling with the Fef is brought to you, as always, by Chip Magnet Salsa. Chip Magnet is an Eau Claire, Wisconsin-based company. They distribute salsa and relish and a whole lot more to grocery stores in more than 38 states and Canada. In the Milwaukee area, you can find Chip Magnet at Woodman's, Sendik's, Festival Foods, Pick and Save, Metro Market, Outpost, several Piggly Wigglies, and Metcalf's in Wauwatosa. And we do have a special running on chipmagnetsalsa.com. If you order $30 or more worth of Chip Magnet Salsa, you can enter the promo code BWTF2024 at checkout. You'll get 25% off your purchase. No limit on that offer. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards. And as always, thank you so much to the folks at Chip Magnet for supporting bowling and Bowling with the Fef. And we do have a Bowling with the Fef merch store pre-sale going on. This is actually the last week of it. Taking orders through March 17th. If you go to bit.ly/BWTF pre-sale, it's all lowercase and it is case sensitive. You can order t-shirts and hoodies, and we will ship those out after the orders come through March 17th. You can see one of them I'm wearing right now. I call this one the Whirline. Spares will get you to Sunday. It's great stuff, and I thank those of you who have ordered so far. Let's get to our guest tonight. He has a really cool gig. There's no other way to put it. Marketing guy and bowling writer at RotoWire. You may have heard of RotoWire when it comes to sports gambling or fantasy sports, but this is the first season it has a PBA Tour and bowling component. Exciting stuff. So we are going to speak with the brains behind it. This is Steve Bulanda of New Berlin, Wisconsin. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Steve. Welcome to Bowling with the Fef.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I slipped there and called you Steven. I know you don't like that, so we're going to stick with Steve from here on out, I hope. So let's set the scene here. I mean, we're both in Wisconsin, and as you know all too well, there are really only little pockets of legal gambling in this state. You've got sports betting available at these casinos: Potawatomi in Milwaukee, Oneida in Green Bay, and St. Croix Casino in Turtle Lake. Because of that, you don't have gambling apps here. So we don't have access to bowling betting. So the question is, how do you bet and even stay on top of developments in the industry being in a state like Wisconsin?
Well, my parents live right down on the border in Kenosha. So anytime that I go down to visit, I just cross over the border and I put my bets in then. I have been, I've had an account with Bet Rivers Casino for a few years now. And I actually just signed up on a whim. There was, a few years back, back when the Peterson was in Illinois, and I know now it's going back, but I was down bowling at the Peterson. I was driving back and happened to see a billboard for Bet Rivers. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I'll pull over and sign up. And so I pulled over into the parking lot, signed up then. I've been gambling with them ever since. And it turns out they're also the only casino that offers online betting on bowling. So
were they already offering that when you signed up?
I don't believe so. Actually one of the reasons why I wanted to get into really just writing about it and trying to educate people on it is the fact that I didn't even realize that they had bowling available. Yeah. Actually, last summer, I happened to be bowling at a sweeper, and Tom Clark was there. So Commissioner Tom Clark is there watching his son bowl. And I just, after bowling, I went over and started talking to him and was like, hey, I work for RotoWire. When are we going to have fantasy bowling? And when are we going to be able to have some options for betting on bowling? And I didn't know until I talked to the commissioner that Bet Rivers offers it. So that kind of light bulb went off for me. Like, okay, if I have an account with Bet Rivers, I like to gamble. I'm a bowler. I didn't even know that they offer bowling. Something's got to give. I'm sure there are a lot of other people that would be interested in betting on bowling, but they don't even realize it's available because it's buried down on the page at Bet Rivers.
Yeah. Where are we at with that right now as far as the straight betting is concerned? I mean, what options do you have? Can you just bet on, individual players to win PBA tournaments? Is there more to it than that? Can you tell me who sets the odds? Do we even know?
Don't know that.
Okay.
I know I believe that the options have expanded quite a bit this year versus past years. Although I wasn't really involved too much in it in past years. So, but now, like, yeah, like at least a week before or at least a few days before the tournament even starts, yeah, they'll have the odds for who's going to win it all, who's going to make the cut, things like that, and then they'll also have different things you could bet on, just round by round qualifying. So if you really want to get into it, I mean, you could bet all day, every day, all week long for, throughout qualifying. And, once we get to the TV finals and everything, it'll be like, you could bet on which basically head to head. Okay. Which of these two guys is going to advance further in the tournament? Which of these two guys is going to do better just in this particular qualifying round? So there are just dozens of different things that you could bet on now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that you've placed some bets on bowling since this has started. Tell us what it feels like, to have something riding on, these matches or an individual player to win a PBA Tour tournament. A lot of us in states that don't have access to this simply don't know that feeling.
Yeah, it's it really just takes the action to a whole different level, because otherwise I would have no attachment to any of these bowlers, but now my money is riding on them. So that's why I think that, I'd love to see, for the sport of bowling, to see gambling expand. And in addition to being able to gamble on it, also having fantasy bowling would be awesome too. Now my league mates and I, on Wednesday nights, I put together a league with them. So we just do our own, keeping track of the stats, basically just, like our scoring system is just players' points, tour points. So we did a draft. Each guy in the league drafted 5 different PBA players, and that's taken my interest in bowling to a new level too, because it's like now, my guy may not have a chance to even make the cut, but I still want him to finish higher than the other guys. So, from start to finish of the tournament, I've got my eye on where everybody's at.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kudos to you guys for putting in the work to make that happen, because that doesn't happen like fantasy football or baseball just on some website. I'm curious, who are your 5?
I've got so I should say we did an auction draft too. So
Okay.
each person started with a $100 budget, and that way, everybody's, if you just did like a snake draft like you probably typically do for a fantasy football draft, then whoever has the number 1 pick, number 2 pick, number 3 pick is going to have a huge advantage, because they're going to take EJ, they're going to take Simo. So we did an auction draft to make it fair. I went ahead and used most of my budget to get EJ Tackett, and that's been working out well for me so far. I've been leading the league from start to finish, thanks to him. I do also have Tom Smallwood, Mitch Hoope, Andrew Anderson, and Richie Teese right now.
Wow, that's a pretty good 5. And you're right, to see one of your guys make a show, which EJ has done so much this season, has got to be awesome. Yeah, for sure. Got some comments here. Flush in the Pocket Derek wants to know how you are doing tonight.
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Jay Santos, one of our regular live viewers, says, "Hi, Fef. This sounds interesting. I enjoy placing a bet from time to time. Did not know bowling had an odds line. So, No, he said. So there you go. You've already shown something new to somebody. Connor Brown says, "Hey, Pfeff and Steve, hope you guys are doing well this Tuesday evening." Absolutely. I'm going to put the disclaimer out there. Don't bet above your means. Make it for entertainment purposes only. But now that that's out of the way, have fun with it. It's good stuff, and it's something that we haven't experienced in the sport of bowling, really in our lifetimes. At least not like this. So it's a cool thing that is going on during the PBA this season for sure. Steve, how did you initially get into bowling? Let's kind of get into your bowling story before we kind of start with the origins of your job.
Okay. I started just bowling in a league when I was in third grade. So it's, been a passion now for about 30 years. So started in third grade, I think I just, it was one of those things where I didn't know anybody in the league. I just joined and, got put on a team with some people. And I think I got lucky in the fact that I ended up with, I was in third grade. There was a sixth grader on my team who was a really good bowler. And it was just he kind of inspired me as I want to be like him. I want to be as good as him, that kind of thing. And he, even though I was a lot younger than him, he was just a great guy, kind of took me under his wing. And that's where it all started. And then I just have been bowling in leagues ever since, and just got exponentially better each year. Most years I had high average in my league and throughout juniors and things like that. And I don't know, unfortunately, by the time when I got to high school, some of the other guys surpassed me then, where they were putting up some bigger scores than me. But now I'm 39 and I feel like I haven't reached my peak yet. So, just keep practicing, keep taking on tougher leagues, going up against the toughest competition, I feel like is the best way to get better.
Absolutely. You tend to rise to the tougher competition after a while if you see it enough. What was your home house? Which center did you kind of call your own?
So I grew up in Kenosha. So I'd say Gatormson's GRC was my home center. Although once when I got to high school, I was bowling, 5 nights a week, because we first got a high school team when I was a sophomore. So I would be bowling at Gatormson's on Saturday mornings. I'd be at Sheridan Lanes on Monday nights. And then I'd also be on the high school team practicing on Tuesdays and Thursdays and then competing on Sundays. So, I kind of, as I got older, I split my time between those two centers.
Sure. Did you have good coaching back then?
Yeah, we did have some pretty good coaching at Sheridan Lanes. That's where it started. Back in those days, we were able to choose which team we wanted to be on. So, we actually initially my sophomore year, it was just Sheridan Lanes was the only team or the only center in Kenosha that had a high school team. So basically, it was just a stacked team. There's so much talent there. And then Gatormson's ended up adding a team the next year. I stuck with the Sheridan team for 2 years. And then one of my friends, Ryan Yannel, who's a great bowler down in Illinois now. But he was like, "Hey, let's go to the Gatormson's team. I think it'll be more fun there." Because it was getting a little bit too serious at Sheridan, taking it too seriously with the coaching there. So we went to Gatormson's and had some fun and bowled well there instead.
Yeah, two great centers in that Kenosha area for sure. What was that experience like for you to kind of go from maybe a junior environment where your primary focus is just improving yourself, getting better, maybe a little team mixed in, to high school where it's really all about the team?
I loved it just because I think I always elevate my game when in a team kind of atmosphere. like that. Even now, like in the area here, we have we call it the fantasy draft tournament, where the top bowlers in the area will be the captains of the team, and it's just like of each of the teams, and it's just like schoolyard style. They pick their teams. It's like to be eligible for it, you have to have at least a 190 average, but you go ahead, you sign up, the captains pick the teams. So you just, if you're a competitor, you just show up to the bowling alley and find out whose team you're on. So I show up there for that, and it's like, oh man, okay, so they picked me. I definitely don't want to be the guy who drags the team down. So then I tend to bowl my best, and that's been one of the tournaments where I consistently cash. I think partly because I feel that pressure of, just not wanting to be the one to drag the team down.
Yeah. There's, any kind of motivator like that is good stuff, right? Yeah. And I know my buddy Dave Barris is a big promoter of that event. So good to see that there's some quality there. Not that I would expect any less.
I was on Dave's team a few years ago when we won it.
Okay, there you go. Good deal. Okay, so you're kind of progressing through high school. You're realizing the kinds of team bowlers you want to be with, and then it's time to think about college and things like that. I know you ended up going to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. What made you choose that, and did bowling have any place in that?
It did. Yeah, when I was scouting out which school I wanted to go to, I wanted to make sure that I went to one that had a bowling team. I also just knew that I wanted to. I mean, I'm a big sports fan, so I knew that I wanted to go to a big time sports school. So and then just once I visited a few campuses, like it was just a slam dunk. There was no question that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful campus. I know back, when I was in college, which is, eons ago, I went and bowled in two different teams, and we went to Madison a couple times, or maybe once a year, for our conference meets. And they had older lanes when I was a freshman, but a few years later, when I had transferred and was bowling for UW Milwaukee, they had just put in new lanes, and it was a beautiful facility. Now, the shot out there was a little strange, but whatever. The lanes were beautiful. Are they still, kept up pretty nice?
Now I would actually say that I'd complain about what the lanes were like when we were there.
Yeah.
It was, Union South. It's like, we had some good bowlers on our team, and I don't think anybody averaged over 200. Okay. And like, I was always like right on the fringe of being to the level of like making the team to go compete. Because basically the way that it worked was anybody could sign up to be on the bowling club. And then we had a league on Monday nights. We would bowl. And then just based on our scoring there, we'd pick the teams for who actually gets to go compete against other schools. So I was a low 200s bowler, I'd say, around that time, but on those lanes, it was more like mid 170s. So I was always on the fringe of maybe I'll crack the lineup, get to go compete. But yeah, it was tough. That was one of the toughest places I've ever bowled, I'd say.
Yeah. Who were you competing with for those spots? Who was on the team?
So there's Brent Ritchie is a good friend of mine who's still tearing it up in the Madison area. Jeremy Krieger. Let's see, Dustin Mizell. These are a few guys that I bowl nationals with too. I'm on a team with Jeremy and with Dustin. Ben Hafman, who's up in the Wausau area now, he's on my nationals team too. So yeah, we were we were all there. Dan Steinley in the Racine area. So those are some of the top guys.
Yeah. So this is a good competitive group. And like you said, having good competition for those team spots is making you a better player. What, I guess, was there a favorite moment that you had during your college career? I mean, it seems like, for me anyway, and I only bowled 3 years, but there were a couple that really stood out, when the team did really well.
As the bowling related stuff, I would say just the coolest thing was just my senior year. At least at some point, I don't remember if it was like preseason rankings or during the season, but we did get votes for like the top 20 nationally, and just having votes, we weren't in the top 20. I don't think we ever cracked the top 20 at any point, but we got votes. So it's like, okay, they are recognizing the talent here, at least. From there, I think I only ended up actually competing in one tournament. So I don't have a whole lot to go back to there, but really it's just, the friendships that I made during the time I was there is just the biggest takeaway. And, the fact that I still am good friends with a number of those guys to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, we never got votes, so you got one on us. I did happen to reach out to Dustin. You had mentioned that you guys bowled on nationals together. He mentioned that you guys have been bowling since college, 05 to 07. You guys overlapped, and he says you have always been the same, consistently up the boards. Dude rarely misses his mark. How would you describe, your game? Are you a power player? Are you more of a stroker? Do you kind of pride yourself on that accuracy?
Yeah, definitely could call me a stroker. Ideally I'd just throw it like straight up the 8 board, 9 board, like all day, any day, just change which bowling ball I'm using to fit, maybe change my ball speed a little bit. But no, I mean, now that I'm a little bit older, getting into more, tougher tournaments and things like that, I recognize that that doesn't work everywhere and doesn't work on every oil pattern. So, now I can, if I need to, I can move inside and open up and swing it out a little bit. I could play straight up the gutter if I need to. But yeah, straight up like the 8 board, 9 board is always my comfort zone.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad. We've got Bowling with Diallo here live. Says, good evening, guys. Great show. Thank you for tuning in. He's got a nice channel with some good content there too. So post-college, tell us about kind of how you kept up your game. Were you in leagues right away? Did you do tournaments right away? Was there a gap there?
So as far as tournaments go, I was mostly just doing like the city tournament, state tournament, and like, a couple others here and there. I would do, I was in 2 leagues out of college. I did a scratch league like with Jeremy Krieger and Chris Jackson and some other guys when I was still in the Madison area at that time. And then I did couples league with Jeremy and his wife and me and my wife at the time, and fiance at the time. And then I ended up moving to Milwaukee after, it was 2011 when I moved to Wauwatosa. So then there was a little bit of a break. I think I went a couple of years without bowling. But then got back into just doing like a couples league type of thing. And wasn't really doing tournaments for a little while there. And then after a few years, I got divorced and I picked up the bowling again. So, in between, I also had 2 kids. So, that took up some more time. I cut back on the bowling a little bit because of that as well.
Sure.
But yeah, after the divorce, it was like, okay, I need to join another league. get back into competitive bowling. So I joined the Wednesday night, the Brunswick Scratch League up in Menominee Falls.
Okay.
So now that I've been doing that for a few years, and that's where I'm bowling against the guys like Dave Barris and Dave Lubinsky, Chad Moss, a lot of the best bowlers in the area.
For sure. Yeah. What's it been like to, to kind of ramp that up over the past 10, 12 years to, to get back into not only a competitive mindset, but also to be able to execute, to the point that you're satisfied with?
It didn't take too much. I think just probably the fact that my game is so simple, and a lot of it just comes down to picking up spares, which just being that I play pretty straight, like it's that helps with the spare game for sure. So especially in a league like that, Wednesdays where we do rotating oil patterns, lots of like different sport shots. Every 7 weeks we switch to a different shot. So we do a short, a medium, and a long pattern. And then we do the nationals patterns from the year before as well. So yeah, basically just grinding out by picking up spares. That's all you have to do to win a lot of the games in there. And it's a really fun league. That one's all individual, just head-to-head bowling. So, the schedule is random. Each week you show up, you bowl against a different guy or woman. So different player. And yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Jay says tournament play is a must for growth as a bowler. The bigger the tourney, the better, in his opinion. I think we both agree with that. Where does the intersection between RotoWire and your bowling come into play? How do you end up getting involved with RotoWire?
So my relationship with RotoWire actually started in college because the headquarters is in Madison. So when I was a senior, I was able to get an internship there. So at that time, I was just doing like different, basically breaking news. Just like, it was the coolest thing as a college kid. You go into the office. There were 2 TVs set up. Like one of them has ESPN news on, the other one has ESPN, and basically you just sit there and wait for news to break. And when it does, then, just write up a couple sentences of what the news is, and then write up a couple sentences of the fantasy impact that news has. And that's it. So just doing player notes like that. And, ideally I would have gotten into just doing a full-time job with them right away, because it's like, yeah, it's a dream job. But yeah, it's a smaller staff, relatively small staff as far as like full-time workers. So yeah, I had to move on and, get a real job somewhere else after graduating. And yeah, just really my, ending up back there was just pure luck, because I was starting to hate the job that I had. I was doing like marketing sales type of stuff. And I was middle management, and like some new management came in there where they were totally micromanaging us. And it's like, okay, I hate being middle management, and I don't get paid enough to deal with this. So I started looking around. I do hate the whole job application process and interviewing and everything. So I was like, okay, I want to get out of here, but if I'm going to get out of here, I need to know that the grass is actually greener on the other side. So I looked at, first place I looked was RotoWire. Like, okay, is there any chance they have an opening? And they happened to have a marketing job when I was looking. So It was just meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And was there kind of a period between the time that you started that marketing job and the time that you end up, writing about bowling? I mean, this is fairly new in the RotoWire,
Yeah,
lineup, right?
it is. Yeah. So I started there, not this past August, but the August before. So yeah, I was just coming in as the marketing guy, and then just as I started to learn the business more, I recognized, a big part of it, which, I mean, it's a big part of any business, is just website, search engine optimization, things like that. So, and then I started thinking, okay, like, I mean, there have been times where I was curious, like, I wonder if there's anywhere that I could actually play fantasy bowling.
Yeah.
And I do a Google search, and there's not even anything out there. Like, nobody is even writing about it. It doesn't exist, which is crazy. Like, it's like somebody out there has had to do it before and wrote about it and put it on the internet. But no, I couldn't find anything. When I would try to search for anything about betting on bowling, it's like, okay, there's nothing out there. Well, RotoWire does a very good job with search engine optimization. So it's like, as soon as I write the first article about betting on bowling, if you do a search for it, my article is the first thing that pops up. And it's like, okay, I think there's a spot for this in the world. And I'm lucky enough that I love bowling and I have a platform to write about it. So
Yeah, for sure. Jay wants to know if you majored in marketing at University of Wisconsin.
I was in the journalism school, which in the journalism school, there are two different paths you could take. There's like broadcast journalism, that like the journalism side of it, and then strategic communications, which is like PR and advertising. So I was on the PR and advertising side of things in the journalism school.
Okay. All right. What, you talked about kind of realizing that after you wrote that first article, there is a place for this. You can see the search score and things like that. There is demand. So what do? Do you have to pitch this to somebody, or is this where you can just take the ball and run with it right away?
Yeah, so I actually, at first, the first couple of articles that I wrote, I did for bookies.com, which a couple years ago, gambling.com purchased RotoWire. Gambling.com has a number of different websites, one of them being bookies.com. And I felt like bookies.com was the spot that it made more sense to have articles about this. But just on that side, we didn't have the resources like to have the editing done and things like that. And it's like, just the system is set up a little bit differently at bookies.com. So it's like, I wrote a couple articles, after the second one, the editor was like, I'm sorry, but we're not going to be able to do bowling articles anymore. It's just, we just don't have the system, the staffing for it. So I asked my operations manager at RotoWire, can I write bowling articles here? And he was like, hell yeah, go for it. So, and yeah, that they've, that's, another great thing about working there. It's just like everybody, it doesn't matter how high up anybody is, like we all treat each other as equals and, respect what we're doing. And then like our social media manager, like she got on board. She's like, oh, I'm going to set up the RotoWire bowling account. Like, will you on X, will you manage it? And it's like, sure, let's go for it. So I guess we're all in now.
Yeah.
It started out, my plan initially was just, I'll write one article for each tournament. And, that's what I was expecting to be doing. But now it's grown into something a little bit more than that.
you've opened Pandora's box, and I it behooves me to at least put the the handles out there so people know where to find you on X. The
Thank you.
Spatula 300 and RotoWire Bowling. Why do they call you the Spatula, by the way?
That's a great story. So, so it's pretty random. Well, it started out last season. I decided I wanted to get in on the drink bet that some of the top bowlers in that scratch league have. So, like the Dave Barris, Chad Moss, Dave Levinsky, those guys, they have they bet on every game. Whoever has the lowest score of the game has to buy a round of drinks for everybody else.
Okay.
So I said, hey, let me get on that this week. And Chad was like, no, that's not how it works. You can't just get in for 1 week. Like if you're in, you're in. And so it's like, okay, just give me a 1 month trial period and let's see how bad this goes for me.
Yeah.
So I did, and my scores were good enough. I barely had to pay for drinks. So I figured, okay, I'll keep this going. And I think just as part of that, at some point, Chad decided that he was going to give me a nickname, and he started calling me the Hammer. So for the rest of the season, I was the Hammer. After bowling, we went into the bar. He announced to everybody, from now on, Steve is known as the Hammer. And everybody obliged. They went along with it. So I was the Hammer for a few months there. Then fast forward to the summer, I was bowling these Wednesday night sweepers at Country Lanes, same spot where I ran into Tom Clark. And then they did a doubles tournament, or doubles sweeper one of the weeks. And I asked Dave Barris if he would be my partner. Well, so he agreed. He came out, he bowled with me. Chad ended up finding out about that, and he wasn't happy. He was upset that I didn't ask him. So he's like, okay, you're not the Hammer anymore. You're the Spatula. I mean, the Hammer started out just as like one of those kind of ironic nicknames, I think, where it's like, because I don't throw the ball that hard. Mm-hmm. I don't have many revs, like nothing like that. It's like how you call a fat guy Tiny or something like that. You call me the Hammer. Well, now that has changed to the Spatula. And,
the Spatula.
Some people still will slip up and call me the Hammer, but it's the Spatula. And I decided, I'm sure there are a ton of people who go by the Hammer or something similar to that. And there aren't many Spatulas. So I'm going to embrace the Spatula. And yeah, that'll be a memorable nickname.
There you go. Yeah, Spatula City. Dustin, I also asked him about, how cool this gig is, because, like I said at the top, it's cool when you not only get to live the sports and the betting, if you're into that, but also get to work it, which you do. He said you're very passionate about sports, hence the job. What a cool gig. I wish I could be more knowledgeable and talk and write about sports all day. I'm assuming that the job is a job. I mean, there are good days and bad, but what's it like to, I don't know, to succeed, to break the big story, to get eyeballs on, on the content that you're putting out there and such?
Yeah, it does feel good. I still feel like there's a lot of work to do. So I'm looking at every opportunity to keep spreading the word and do more. I mean, I also would, am doing what I can to push to get gambling in more areas. Like I've reached out to Potawatomi here in Milwaukee a couple times to suggest that they have bowling betting, and I've reached out to BetMGM. I think it would be nice to have more sports books in more states that have it, because even Bet Rivers has it there. I think they're in like 15 or 16 states, plus Ontario. but they don't have bowling available in every state. I've also come to find out. So like, at least from what I've observed, they don't have it in Iowa. They don't have it in New York. So I don't know, just really just want to keep pushing forward and hopefully make it more mainstream.
Yeah. So basically at this point, the goal for you is, the more people who understand that there's bowling on bet rivers in certain states possibly get into it, that creates the demand for the content you create, and hence, it gets you to where you need to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and then I mean, so yeah, I've got a couple different goals. There's my goal just as someone who loves bowling and wants to see the sport grow, and then my work job for RotoWire is I'm trying to bring in a new audience. So if I can get people who are interested in bowling to come read my articles on the website, hopefully that they'll go ahead and check out other things that are on the website too. It's a subscription website, so there's a lot of great tools for anybody who, whether you're preparing for a fantasy draft, or if you're into daily fantasy sports, like we've got lineup optimizers. If you're into the different pick'em kind of games where it's like, okay, well, this player score over or under this many points. Now, those are things that we can do in Wisconsin. There's DraftKings Pick Six, there's Underdog, Prize Picks, all these different kind of player prop games that for some reason they say it's not the same as sports betting, but in many ways it is. So, but yeah, so we've got all these tools to help out with that, and I use them myself, and I've been on a hot streak lately. So, so I would recommend following me too, because I will share some of those picks too on like DraftKings Pick Six in particular. I've been able to find some edges there, just with the numbers that they're offering for different player props. Yeah.
And this is a little line that you sent me. You can register for a 2-day trial with full access to every fantasy sports and betting article and tool on RotoWire. And if you misplace this address, just look in the description of this video. You'll find it right there. Up by me, we're pretty far removed from Illinois and those states that actually have bet rivers. So it's probably a big ask to say to someone in my neck of the woods, hey, let's start betting on bowling. By the way, you're going to have to drive, 5 hours or whatever it is. But is the ask bigger, for those of us around here to do that, or for Wisconsin to open up the floodgates and allow bet rivers and, in essence, bowling betting to be here?
Yeah, I don't know. I think just the little bits that I've heard, it sounds like it's going to be a challenge to get that breakthrough in Wisconsin.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully, hope maybe Potawatomi will listen, and then others will listen, and we can at least, because at least we have some sports betting now. Last March when they started offering sports betting at Potawatomi, I was there. I think 3 of the first 5 days that the sports book was open, betting on games. It was March Madness time, so one of the best times of year to be betting.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that would be a step in the right direction if we could get them to offer bowling too.
Sure. Absolutely. Jay says, sorry for being a chat hog. Can Steve tell again where to place these bowling wagers? I'm working and listening. Oh, he said, got it. Thanks. But yeah, it is Bet Rivers is the one place to do that. But it's a cool thing. And just because, for some folks, there's a stigma about this. I think any opportunity to have interest in bowling. And I think that's really a big part of it, because it's, like you said initially when I asked you about your feeling on, having something on the line when these guys are bowling. It's just a different experience, and it's something that can potentially get more people interested in bowling, not only in the PBA, but just as a whole in this sport, I think.
Yeah. Actually, it wasn't too long ago that I heard, I think it was Matthew McConaughey. He got asked about betting on sports, and he said betting on a game is like a ticket to the game.
Yeah.
Like, that's what gets me interested in the game. And like, the way I look at it, I know, definitely bet responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as, for me, if, like, I'm not betting significant amounts of money. I'm not a professional gambler. But when I do make a bet, if I lose, it's like, okay, I lost. That was my entertainment. Like
Yep.
you said, entertainment purposes. Some people like to spend $200 to go to a concert. I'm not into that. I would rather bet $100 on a football game, and maybe I'll come out richer, or
Mhm.
maybe I lose the money, but at least I had that excitement for 3 hours, And for me, that excitement is, my entertainment,
Mhm.
the same as, paying $200 to go to a concert is your entertainment.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. These days, you might not even be able to get into that football game for $200, depending on
yeah.
when and where. So there's that too. Steve, on our show, we always go off the sheet at the end, and that's where I ask you to challenge somebody else. Doesn't have to be the greatest bowler in the world, but certainly can be, to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef. Of course, we look for people with passion for the sport and a unique story to tell. So, Steve Bulanda, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
Okay. I'm going to go with the man who is the all-time leader in 300 games at the LBC Championships. He is also the state record holder for at the state tournament doubles. That's Chad Moss. He at the LBC Championships last year, the inaugural games, he had 2 300 games. So that makes he likes to remind us that he is the all-time leader in 300 games at the LBC. And yeah, I think he's. I mean, I know I enjoy hearing his stories after bowling on Wednesdays, and I'm sure that he would share some good stories here.
Yeah, totally agree. I know Chad a little bit. We go back to juniors at what was then AMF West Allis, and he's always been a great player for sure. Yeah, Chad, if you're seeing this and want to take Steve up on his challenge, you know where to find me on Facebook. I'm Andrew Pfeffer, or bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com on email. I will certainly make that happen. Steve, if you want to remind us where we can find you, both on the X and on RotoWire.
Yeah, on X, you could find me at the Spatula 300. I use that as, just like my business account, basically. So I put stuff out there about bowling, but other sports too, all kinds of fantasy sports related things and sports betting. And then at RotoWire Bowling, that's going to be all bowling. It's all like betting and fantasy related bowling stuff there. And then at rotowire.com, now somebody did point out to me that there's not a bowling page, and that's true. There's actually not. If you go to RotoWire, you'll see all these different sports, but there's not actually a bowling page there. At least not yet. Not yet. We've been trying to work with Bet Rivers to get the odds so that so that the odds will automatically show up on the page. So
Sure.
For all the different qualifying rounds, everything for each tournament, we want whatever that they are offering to show up on the site, and just having some difficulties with that. So for now, it's just, if you're interested in seeing what my picks are for, I haven't haven't done my article for the Masters yet, but I will be doing one. You could just search Masters, USBC Masters picks, and it'll probably be the first thing that shows up in the search results, after I've written it. Same thing for any past tournaments. If you want to take a look at my previous work, just search for it. It'll probably be the first thing that shows up when you do a search. So, yeah.
And if memory serves, you had said on another show that last year's USBC Masters was the tournament that had the most bets placed of that season, right?
Yes. So I would anticipate that it's going to be a big tournament for gambling again this year. And yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do have some other stats that I wanted to share too, that I got from the communications company that works with Bet Rivers. So last year when I had checked, I had asked, just where does bowling fit amongst the other sports that you guys offer?
Yeah.
At the time, they said that it was 25th in total handle. So total amount of money risked amongst all the sports. So 25th, I mean, there's some pretty random sports that were ahead of it. It is, I asked again just recently, and it is moving up a little bit. Still have a lot of work to do, but right now, bowling, as far as total money goes, is the 21st most wagered on sport.
Okay.
So it's behind handball and ahead of high ally.
Okay.
It is the 18th most popular sport as far as total tickets. It's behind rugby and ahead of snooker. So again, some pretty random sports out there. But one thing that I thought was interesting is that they said that in the past year, the public has a 3.8% hold on the total bowling handle. So basically that means that the public is actually making more money than the sports book when betting on bowling.
I like those odds.
Yeah, there are only 3 sports where it's positive for the public in the past year, and that's bowling, high ally, and lacrosse. So I think if you know bowling, maybe you have an edge there that you don't have in other sports.
Yeah.
So something to consider.
For sure. And it's good to hear that it's heading in the right direction. That's I think that's the big takeaway there, is that as soon as we can get past sports like handball and rugby, we'll be on our way to maybe challenging the big four for a little more prestige on the betting front. Our show next week, coming up a week from today, Ben Marson, who I mentioned earlier, had the show with me on it on 10 Pin Ben on YouTube. He will be joining us a little different time, 5:30 at night, a little earlier, just due to his time change there. But he will be our next guest on Bowling with the Fef. And Steve, it has been a pleasure getting to know you, getting to know your bowling story. Best of luck both on the lanes and at RotoWire as you keep fighting the good fight to get more betting on bowling in our hands.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks again for having me.
You bet. And thanks to all of you for watching. Always appreciate that. Have a great week, and we will see you again next time.